Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the ThePCelitist. My name is Woodsie.
My name is Shepherd.
And today we have a subject, kind of something we were just spitballing around, but we thought it'd be an interesting subject to get your insights on. Because sometimes we talk without recording.
Most of the time we talk without recording, and we miss the greatest moments.
I've suggested that we just record everything we say to each other. And then post all of it. And let them pick out the gold stuff. Let them figure it out.
I don't know if they have enough time in the day.
Anyway, so we were talking about the idea of, what if there was an RPG, and this has been kind of done in the past in a way, and someone I'm sure is going to say, there's a game that does this already.
Yeah, it's called... No one's ever heard of it. Can't believe you haven't.
Right. But an MMO that kind of a la Ultima Online, if anyone remembers that. In Ultima Online, you had stats. You could see your strength. You could see your skills in any particular like swordsmanship or what have you, or spellcrafting, daggery, yeah, stealth. I don't know, whatever the skills were in Ultima Online, and they were only gained by doing that thing. So you want to be better blacksmithing, you blacksmithed, and there was no level system. You didn't gain a level. There was no caps. You know, you could have a character, theoretically, that did everything, as long as you spent the time to do it. So I was thinking, what if there was a game where they don't even tell you that much? And there's no real restrictions like in real life. I know if there's a two-handed sword sitting in my room, and I try to pick it up, it's not going to tell you. Life isn't going to... God isn't going to say, you can't pick that up.
Yeah, you can't use that, or you have just learned two-hand swordsmanship. It's, oh, here's a sword. I want to get kind of good with this.
Right.
And you start out absolutely miserable at it.
Right, and ways... Now, this discussion is kind of like, how can this practically work in a video game environment? Not just, wouldn't it be cool if a game did this, and not actually thinking about the mechanics that would go into... Which everyone does.
Yeah, and that's my flaw. I too often think of, wouldn't it be awesome if there was a game that did this? And then when I start thinking about how would you implement that, it's usually where a lot of great ideas fall apart. And I'm sure there are plenty of developers that have found that to be true.
Right.
How many brilliant ideas have been left on the cutting room floor?
Because there was no practical way to employ it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about a game that's really low UI, that you want to get better with a sword, that you just use it a lot, and there are things that you do better with it that are intuitive. So you swing it faster, you get harder hits. There would have to be already like a combat system in place, and then by getting better with the weapon, you can take even more advantages of that combat system.
Mm-hmm.
But in a very intuitive way.
What I would imagine, though, is, well, I guess two questions. One, well, no, I'll save one of them for later. Here's my question. Let's say there's like a two-handed sword, there's one-handed, like different types of weapons, but you know, whether it's an axe or a sword, they're all the same, similar size and weight.
Right.
You may use them a little differently. I would imagine, though, under a system like this, if you improve your hand-eye coordination with a sword, I imagine quite a bit of that would transfer over to like an axe, for example.
Right.
So you could probably get better at several weapons in the same general category by improving one, or maybe all the melee weapons would improve. Your melee weapon would improve simply because you've been practicing more at doing something like that.
Right. Yeah. So I guess if you had to have hidden numbers somewhere, because if you're hiding it from the player,
Mm-hmm.
obviously there has to be numbers somewhere in the game. But if it's hidden, like say you raise your swordsmanship from 50 to 80, and then through that process your other one-handed weapons go up 10 points. Because they're in a shared type of
skill set.
Yeah.
I think that a good question to ask, I know your answer to this, but why would you want a game to do this? What is the benefit?
Because I hate UIs.
Yes.
You know how much I hate anything you put in the game.
Takes you out of the game.
Yeah, anything you have to explicitly tell the player.
Unless it's understood that that would be on my screen, such as if I'm wearing a futuristic helmet that has some kind of HUD.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm all for games with realistic clip systems and actually have to look at your clip and look through those little tiny holes. That's why we have these really great textures now. Mm. We have awesome textures, so why don't we use them for stuff? I don't need a digital readout for my gun. I could look at the clip and see if it's got bullets in it. That's the advantage of having great graphics, I would think. So, in the same vein, I think it would be a very immersive experience where you're just literally plopped into a world. You're a man or a woman if you're that you're that guy.
What's wrong with dames?
We just know that most girl avatars in games are not girls.
True.
You should have to prove you're a woman to play as in this game, in my game that I'm making, where there's no UI. You have to prove you're a woman before you can get the female avatar.
Y chromosome shall not be accepted.
No, you can, but it has to be legitimate.
Oh. That's a man.
Huh?
Never mind. Carry on.
If there's a girl avatar walking around, it is a girl. That's all I'm saying. Okay?
All right.
Anyway, so I forget now what my point was.
Well, you were talking about immersion.
Yes.
Basically, the point of this would be a more immersive experience where I don't have some quantitative way to show how I'm progressing, how soon it will be before I get to the next milestone. Like, when will I get faster with this sword, with this weapon?
Right.
You'll know because through practicing, you'll just notice it will get better.
Right. Now, I imagine as some sort of fantasy element, but it's hard to say because you think, when do I know I could kill a dragon?
I think, when do I know I can throw a fireball? It's like, unless you've been trained or raised to understand that magic is here.
Right.
But maybe that's part of it. You create a game and the player doesn't know if they can be magical.
Right.
My other question that I was going to ask earlier is, in a crafting type system, you'd have to kind of explain to the player when they buy the game, for example, here are the types of crafting you can do. Like, let's say, blacksmithing, it's kind of obvious. So you hammer, anvil, you get materials together. Like, we don't know how basic do we want this to be. Like, you have to go find metal.
Right.
You have to shape it. Like, it doesn't have to be that rudimentary, but like, you don't want a player saying, I'm going to be a cobbler. And he goes all around looking for needle, thread, and leather.
Right.
Only to find out, there's no mechanic for making shoes.
Well, you know what? This might actually turn into a slightly different...
This is one of our wackier discussions, I think.
That actually turns it into a different discussion altogether, because back in the day, PC games usually had a manual that came with it is about as big as this, CompTIA A+ certification book you have sitting here. Okay? They had these huge manuals, and would explain you the mechanics of the game, and then they didn't need a UI when you got to the game. Does that help immersion? The fact that you're explaining, it's like, this is how you use the game, now here it is.
It's like study for the test, and your test will be playing the game.
Yeah.
To me, that's not so immersive because I had to do all this studying beforehand. To me, immersion, and I think it fundamentally is immersion. You're thrown into a world where you don't know what's happening and you have to learn. Or is immersion you're thrown into a world where it's understood, you know what you're doing? Like, I think
immersion, I think, happens when you feel. I think you have to have a mystery, like some sort of willingness. You want to explore this place, but I think immersion happens when you feel you're part of the world. So when you have to do all things in the world, like what I was saying, okay, if you want to see if you're stronger with a sword, you hit a block of wood, and if you make a bigger chip than you did before, then you're stronger. That kind of thing helps with immersion because you're experimenting all within the world itself.
That's true. I think a large part of that, for example, the whole players can know the difference between what they can do and what they can't do. A lot of times a game will teach you, these are the things you can do. Go do them in whatever way you can. And then it's usually a trial and error of you have to figure out what you can't do. Right. I wonder if a game like the one we're describing is you don't know what you can or can't do. Or you might know what you can't do. And I don't want to sound too repetitive by using can and can't over and over again. But imagine you're put into a world where you don't know if you can use a crowbar as a weapon. Right. And you feel, I can pick it up, but is this just an item I pick up, or can I actually train myself to use this as a weapon?
Right.
And I think it's kind of like in Monopoly. Well, it doesn't say you can't rob the bank. Technically.
But you've ever, like, handed a guy a game and say, try this game, and he'll play, and he'll see, like, somebody far off, and he'll say, can I hit that guy from here? Or can I shoot through this, through this thing?
Best way to find out.
Will the bullet go through this gate? Mm-hmm. Yes, realistically, a bullet will go through a chain link fence as long as it doesn't, collide with the actual chain.
But I think, well, my point was there's just that if you try and set up these either confines or no confines of what you can and can't do, that fundamentally means, are you putting the player in a world where they don't know what they're capable of?
Right.
So, and I think that just speaks more to the fundamental game design. But I think a big part, for me, immersion, it happens, the way you said it, when you feel like you're part of the world. The biggest immersion killer for me is there's a box right there. I can't step up onto it. I can't jump. I can't interact with it. To me, I'm most pulled out when I can't interact with the game world or the terrain. When there's an invisible wall when I'm walking up a hill. That, to me, kills immersion more than anything. Like, UI, yeah, certainly
it's a direct intervention of the game developer saying, you're not going over here.
Yeah, you can't go there. And it's fine if I can't walk, like if it's a Minecraft beach where it just goes on endlessly and I hit a wall, that's one thing. But if there's still stuff, like there's buildings over there, I want to go in there. That's another thing. When you play a game in an urban environment and only, like, there are some buildings, most of the buildings you just can't go into.
Right.
That bothers me.
I think everyone has that fantasy of the game where there's skyscrapers and buildings all over the place, and every building is furnished and there's stuff, and it feels very realistic.
And you could,
which is where a zombie apocalypse game is.
Yes, and one of these days I'm going to, in a discussion, flesh out what I envision for it, because it's not like I'm worried that I'm going to give this idea out and someone's actually going to make the game and it's going to be intellectual property theft. I'm sure 50,000 other people have thought of the game I'm thinking of.
Right.
But I do want to present it to the community, and I want it to happen. Even if I get no recourse for it.
Kickstarter. Apparently it's all the craze.
Yes. Anything else you wanted to touch on this? This has been a less focused or intensive of our discussions, but
that's true.
Some general thoughts.
Yeah, I was just we were spitballing the idea. Where does it fall apart? What does the lack of numbers lose interest for people? Like,
I think,
you can't see?
To me, and this just speaks to my inexperience of I don't make games, so I don't know. I think it may fall apart in the critical reception. I don't know if people will be able to cope with the fact that they can't see a quantitative measure of their progress.
Right.
Even if they're told, no, keep practicing, you'll eventually get better. The only problem with that is, one, well, how long will it take?
Right.
I'd like to know. And two is, are you really guaranteed to get better with practice? Because let's say you develop bad habits starting out with a one-handed sword. If you keep using those bad habits, you're not really going to get better.
Right.
You're going to get better at doing it poorly.
Right.
But I don't know. That's a whole other discussion.
Well, let's say
I think we're overthinking it a little bit.
My goal for this game, let's say I make this game. It's called Dragon Face. Okay?
Okay. Dragon Face.
Okay. At least, if anything, if critically it's not received well, if anything, there would be such a little niche amount of people that loved the fact that there's like no UI that there would be, I'd create a small group of people that do that thing where they say, well, you know what the best game actually is in the world? It's Dragon Face. Yeah, I know. You've never played. Oh, yeah, the lack of UI. You can't handle it? Whatever.
Such an elitism.
Yes. I want to create an elitist
community. Nice. Even if there are only 6 of them, they will be the best 6 gamers in the world.
I'm a Dragon Face elitist.
Dragon Face elitist.
Anyway.
All right.
This has been odd.
It has. Please, I hope you're still listening. We're not in a downward spiral. This is just one of those videos.
My name is Woodsie.
My name is Shepherd. This is the PC Elitist signing out.